Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And first off, I want to apologize for the really weird setup. I don't like doing it this way. But as you know, I'm getting ready to move, and all of my stuff, my mini totes and crates of things, are piled up in front of the bookcase because it's a convenient place out of the way. That's why I've been filming there. But nonetheless, this is the only time that we'll have this really weird setup for a very long time because the next video I will be forming, filming on my college campus. I move in next week. Um, so yeah, we'll have to figure out a new setup, where we want to do that, how to get good lighting. But yeah, so that'll be a new experience for us all together. And on the subject of my moving, because of starting school again, I'm changing my upload schedule. You'll still have a video every week as long as things go well. But they're going to be uploaded on Fridays. My schedule allowed for me to have most of the day to myself on Friday. So I feel pretty confident that I'll be able to film, just sit down and film it one day because it really doesn't take that long. And then to be able to have time to do the little edits that I do and then upload it, because uploading a 30-minute video, for those of you that haven't done it, takes forever. It's so frustrating. And then if your Wi-Fi blinks, or if you're on data especially, um, it can take longer, especially if it goes out of range or something. So I'll have Friday to be frustrated with that instead of, just doing throughout the week when I really don't have time and patience to sit down and, and do it amongst work and schoolwork and everything. So yeah, that's the big change. We'll be in a new setup next week. And so the next video will be uploaded next Friday. So that will be the 23rd. We just won't upload next Wednesday on the 21st because I will be super duper busy. Nonetheless, thank you for tuning in. I'm Sarah from Who I Am Among the Pages. And if you're new here, it's great to see you. I hope you stick around. And if you're not new, welcome back. So today's video, I wanted to do something that I think is a little controversial. I want to do a video on why what people call book abuse is good. So I'm talking about highlighting, note-taking, dog-earing pages, not getting panicked when you have water damage on the pages. I mean, if it's molding, if it's been in a flood, then that's not a good thing because that can be a health hazard, and I don't condone that. But I'm just talking about the pages being a little wavy, a little textured, and sticking things in. Like, page tabs don't tend to do damage, but I know sometimes sticky notes will sometimes come away with things. Like, that's just my key for how I was tabbing things in this book. But anyway, so yeah, and I also wanted to talk about cracking the spine because apparently that is a big deal to some people. So the first thing I want to talk about was highlighting. And I really did not do much highlighting or note-taking in any of my books until very recently. The first book I really highlighted and took notes in was actually when I reread Outlander. I read this for the first time, I don't know, I think I was still a freshman in high school. So it's been about 4 years. It was right as the show was coming out, so I think it was like 2014, 2015. And I read it through and then didn't pick up the rest of the series. I think because I was a little intimidated of the size of books, and I mean, hello, well, a 14-year-old wouldn't be. Most 14-year-olds wouldn't be. So I got through this, and I really loved it, but I just didn't continue on with the series. So I decided this January, I really, really want to go ahead and read the books because I love the first one so much, and, now I'm not intimidated by huge books. I mean, I am, but not as much as I was when I was a little bit younger. So I had started to just go ahead and pick up Dragonfly and Amber, the second book of the series, but really felt like I didn't remember the details of Outlander as well as I needed to. So I had picked this up to reread it, and the first time around, I highlighted nothing. This book, other than the spine was worn from having been used, but it's a mass market paperback, you really can't get around it. Other than that, the book was in pretty much perfect condition, other than a dog ear every now and then when I couldn't find a bookmark. But this time around, I really wanted to make sure that I held on to these really important plot points and character development moments because of carrying on with the series. And because there's books, or there will be 9 books, because the new one's coming out fairly soon. So I wanted to make sure that if I forgot something, that I could just open the book, flip through to the general section, and be able to find what I was looking for. And at first, I decided not to use page tabs. I didn't like them, and they still kind of annoy me the way they stick out of the book. So bits of dialogue that I really, really liked and I thought important, I highlighted and underlined some too. I that kind of goes along with highlighting though. And I think it's really important to highlight the things that you really, really love in a book. Like this, I believe this was the first time that in Outlander that Claire was called Mistress Fraser, and I really, really liked that because, you know, again, I read the books, I knew it. I read the first book, I knew it happened, but I just really, really loved it. So I think highlighting is important because it literally marks like very important things that in the moment that really shocked you, and it's an easy way when you're talking about a book to just flip through, especially if you have it color coded, find the color in the general section, and that's probably what you're looking for. And of course, the first time I did that was in Outlander. Then moving on to Dragonfly and Amber, I didn't do it as much. Dragonfly is pretty clean. Because I read this mostly while I was in school, so between classes. I only really had like this really crappy highlighter that didn't do a very good job. So there's some in that. And then Voyager, man, was huge for me. So there are more page tabs than anything, because I got a little page tab happy and had them color coded and everything. There are some passages though highlighted. And then of course, Poor Drums of Autumn. That's not really highlighted as much because I read this some while I was on the beach and traveling, so I didn't have a highlighter with me, obviously. But anyway, I think it's important to pick out your most important, most favorite moments in a book. And then moving on to note-taking. I find, like, at least in talking to other people, that more people are generally okay with highlighting a passage than they are with writing in a book. And again, I don't personally understand that, because when I was in middle school, I had a teacher that stressed the importance of taking notes in a margin when we were reading a passage or, especially a printed out like article for her class. And I just got used to it. And then when I was in high school, of course, I took honors in AP English classes. And for that, there's a lot of times where I had to have my own copy of a book. And for the book discussions that we would do, I got into the habit because I don't really care about the book for the most part. I mean, a lot of times it's required reading. A lot of people, it doesn't matter if it's the best book ever written. If you have to read it within a week, you're going to hate it. But so I've gotten used to writing in the margin, and for the most part, my margin writing has carried over into reading with making margin notes on my reaction to something. So a lot of times if I have a passage that's highlighted or underlined, somewhere on the page there's also a note written, like how I felt about that. Or if, I know in the beginning of this book particularly, there is a huge number of just little, even just grammar things or phrasing things I thought was really incredible. So I took a note on it, try to learn to do things this way, like, or highlighting how a scene was worded and, writing a note like, this is really good, try to learn from this, something like that, to carry over to my own writing. And of course, then there was things that couldn't fit anywhere else, so I take it to the end of the chapter and, like, vent, basically. And sometimes I also, this is on a sticky note, but it's written other places too, things about the character, like their full name, their birthday, like this is for Jamie, full name, birthday, height, and then who they're married to and who their kids are. I tend to do that a lot, just in the margin or at the end of a chapter when you have space. There's a lot of that in Outlander, and again, not as much in Dragonfly. There's a lot in Voyager. So for me, I think note-taking in a book is really important, actually, because, you're only going to read a book for the first time one time. you know, you can read a book once and then wait 30 years and read it again, but you're still going to remember, if it was a good book, you're generally still going to remember like the big cliffhanger or the big plot twist, like if it was a really good one. And if it wasn't a really good book, why do you want to read it again? So, you know, you're only going to experience that big moment in the book one time. And I think it's important, if it's really meaningful to you, to kind of immortalize that. And what better way to do it than as that thing is happening? You know, you can't jump in, unfortunately, you can't jump into the book and be like, oh my God, what the heck are you doing? Like, how could you do this to me? So on and so forth. Most of the time, we can't call up the author and be like, I hate you for doing this. Like, I hate you. um, so what better way to immortalize like those feelings in that moment than within the pages of said book? Um, and again, you know, when you go back through it, either looking for certain details or just rereading it, then you'll be able to kind of put yourself into that mindset of how you felt about it the first time around. And of course, yeah, I do it for convenience sake, like details on character, because I'm bad about remembering stuff like that. Not so much in Outlander, but in other books in the past, I'm pretty bad about remembering like really minuscule details that tend to pop back up again. Um, and then, you know, I look through it again, that sort of thing. But I find if I write it down, I tend to remember it better, just like with everything else. And dog earing. So dog earing, I do understand why people don't like it, because it does weaken the fibers in the paper, and especially if it's something like a library book. Of course, I don't condone writing, highlighting, or dog earing a library book, because so many people have to use that, and you are still damaging the book somewhat. But especially when it comes to dog earing, you know, you wouldn't rip a page out of your book, or I wouldn't anyway. Like, you know, some things are okay, but I draw the line at like ripping it out. But you know, when it comes to dog earing, you're damaging the paper that the story itself is printed on. And granted, it's not a huge deal, but you're creasing that paper, and if it's creased enough, then it'll rip easily. So I understand if people have a problem with it, but if it is your own book, I see no problem with dog earing, and I do it all the time, actually. Now, right now in Drums of Autumn, I have a bookmark, which, by the way, I just had to flaunt this a little bit. I love this bookmark, and I got it on clearance. Perfect size, love the little tassel, and yes. But, you know, until very recently, I got into the habit of dog earing every book I read. But again, I read my own books, and, you know, right now I'm reading through the Outlander series, so I'm not really going back and rereading and re-dog earing, so the fiber's weakening. But I think there's nothing wrong with it, especially if you're on the go, you know, or if you have, like me, if you have cats that tend to be like, that's a string, I'm taking that. Or, you know, kids tend to pull them out, that sort of thing. I see nothing wrong with it, as long as it's your own book, or the person that you borrowed the book from gave you permission to do it. It's just a convenient way to mark a page. Sorry, guys. But lastly, I wanted to talk about probably the most actual damaging thing to a book is water damage. Now, personally, I like my books after I finish, especially paperbacks, I like them to look like they've been worn out and used and loved. But I do understand this is a little bit gnarly. It's a little bit much, because the spine's kind of shot on this. Now, I did not mean for this to happen. I took this to the pool and wasn't thinking, had a beach towel spread out after I'd been in the pool. Went to lay down on it. I was reading, got back up to get in the pool, and opened this and laid it face down on my wet towel. So this is totally my fault. It wasn't on purpose. But I actually kind of like when a book has a little bit of water damage. Like, after I'm done reading it, even while I'm reading it, I think it is the coolest feeling to be reading along and have that loud, you know what I mean? That loud crinkly sound. And again, like, for the most part, when your book gets wet, it's because you've been reading, like, on the beach, by the pool, in the bathtub, or whatever. And usually those moments mean something. Like, a lot of us don't have our own pool, or, you know, don't live at the beach. So those are specific memories and specific moments in time that you did something special. So you typically want to remember that. And I think it's interesting to not only, be able to be like, yep, I read this book while I was on summer vacation and we went to the pool. You can pinpoint exactly when you read that section at the pool. I'm probably the only one that thinks that, but I don't mind it. Just like I don't mind my copy of Drums of Autumn. It's not too bad, but you can kind of see it from the ripple across the bottom. What parts I read while I was at the beach. You can tell it more if you're looking at the closed pages. But I think it's kind of cool to be able to pinpoint by looking at the book. Oh yeah, I remember that. I was sitting in my little sand chair on the shore. I think it's a neat way to memorialize when you were reading it. So to kind of sum it all up, I think if they're your books, of course, if they're your books, book abuse is not a bad thing because, in many cases, there are a million copies of, Voyager per se. I would easily say a million, if not many millions of copies of this book. And, they're all the same. They come off the printing press. They're brand new. You have your mass market paperback, your trade paperback, and your hardcover. And they're exactly the same. And, you spent I think it's got the price tag on it. $9.99. So I spent $9.99 on this, and so did a million other people. But to me, it makes the book your own. That is your copy. There is nobody else in the world that is going to have a copy with those exact pages water-stained and crinkled in the same fashion that mine are. And nobody else took the same notes that I did in the margins and, put page tabs the same place I did or found the same little bits important. So I think it just makes it so much your own. And, authors, this is an art. Writing a book is definitely an art. And it's years, most of the time, it's years of hard work that go into a book, especially in Diana Gabaldon's case. So they want you to love and cherish their work. And by adding your personal touches to it, I think it shows your interaction with the story more so than, yes, here's my pristine copy of this book that I've read 60 times. Where's the fun in that? So anyway, to sum it all up, I do enjoy marking up my books. Not everybody does. Don't do it in a library book. That's not okay, not cool. And if you don't know who I am on Wattpad, I'm Eliza Victoria 13, and you should definitely check it out. I'm finishing up my first book, and there will be a new book coming out this fall. So check it out, and I'll see you next Friday.